What if the story of our past, the one written in textbooks carved into monuments and taught as unquestionable truth, was never the full story at all? What if a series of buried artifacts unearthed from deserts, cave walls, and ocean floors quietly points to a version of human history that is entirely fabricated? In today's investigation, 10 archaeological finds that prove our history is fabricated. We peel back the layers of official narratives and examine discoveries that should have rewritten the timeline, but were instead dismissed, ignored, or explained away with almost suspicious convenience. Some of these objects are millions of years older than they should be. Others show craftsmanship that shouldn't have existed. And a few suggest that ancient civilizations may have possessed technology we still struggle to replicate today. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed. This channel brings you the stories the mainstream avoids, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's dive into the first anomaly. Number 10 is the 300-million-year-old metal sphere fragments found deep within South African mines, objects so out of place that even geologists who first studied them hesitated to publish their findings. Buried inside layers of pyrophyllite dated to nearly 3 billion years old. These metallic spheres were discovered by miners who assumed at first that they were man-made debris. But the deeper they dug, the more impossible that assumption became. Each sphere is perfectly balanced with precise grooves etched around its circumference symmetry that suggests intentional design. Some researchers claimed they spun independently inside their stone cavities as if responding to magnetic fields. Others insisted they must be natural formations, yet could not explain the uniformity. No recorded industrial process, modern or ancient, matches their shape or composition. And their presence inside geological layers that predate humanity by hundreds of millions of years raises the most unsettling question: who or what made them? Mainstream science brushed them aside, offering vague explanations that rely more on faith than data. Critics insist the grooves are natural, but then fail to account for how nature consistently produced identical patterns across multiple spheres. Even stranger independent tests reportedly revealed an ultra-hard alloy unlike anything used in ancient metallurgy. The spheres never made it into textbooks. Museums declined to showcase them. Journal articles addressing them are sparse, dismissive, and uncomfortable. It's as if the academic world collectively agreed not to look too closely. Perhaps because doing so would force a rewriting of human history from the ground up. These spheres challenge the very foundation of archaeology, the timeline. If they are artificial, then intelligent beings existed long before Homo sapiens, long before primates even resembled humans. Whether they were tools, ornamentation, or remnants of a forgotten culture, their existence contradicts the accepted narrative so profoundly that ignoring them became the easiest option. And so they remain locked away in private collections and obscure mining records, haunting footnotes in geological reports. But for those willing to look, the message they send is both simple and earth-shattering. Our past is far older, stranger, and more technologically advanced than we are taught to believe. Number 9 is the Baghdad Battery, a clay jar, copper cylinder, and iron rod discovered in Iraq that, when assembled, behave exactly like a primitive electrical battery. The artifact dates back over 2,000 years to the Parthian period, long before electricity was officially discovered. And yet this device produces a small but measurable electric charge when filled with an acidic liquid. Archaeologists first dismissed it as a curiosity, a ceremonial object, maybe even a simple storage container. But the physical evidence refuses to cooperate with those modest interpretations. The components align too perfectly with the principles of galvanic cells. The copper tube is intentionally crafted. The iron rod shows corrosion patterns consistent with electrochemical reactions. And when researchers rebuilt the device using historically accurate materials, it worked precisely as a battery should. What purpose could such a power source have served in the ancient world? Some propose it was used for electroplating, a technique to coat metal artifacts with thin layers of precious metals. Others argue it may have been medicinal, delivering mild electric stimulation. But the most mysterious theory suggests something deeper, that ancient engineers understood energy in ways we've long assumed were impossible. Even more intriguing, similar devices have been found across the region, as if part of a forgotten technological tradition. Collections of copper tubes, rods, and sealed jars appear in scattered excavation reports, often dismissed individually, but eerily consistent when viewed together. If these were indeed functioning batteries, then the ancient Near East possessed a working knowledge of electricity thousands of years before Benjamin Franklin flew his famous kite. Yet textbook history refuses to budge. Museums label the Baghdad Battery, cautiously choosing terms like hypothetical and possible rather than acknowledging the obvious. The discovery threatens the linear narrative of scientific progress. The idea that humanity moved steadily from primitive tools to advanced technologies in a neat, unbroken line. And perhaps that's why the Baghdad Battery remains more of an uncomfortable footnote than a revelation. It hints at a lost chapter of innovation, a shadowed lineage of experimenters and inventors whose knowledge did not survive the empires that buried them. But the device still whispers its truth across millennia. Electricity is not as modern as we think, and the ancient world may have held secrets that challenge everything we believe about the origins of technology. Number 8 is the Piri Reis map, a fragment of gazelle skin parchment created in 1513, yet containing geographic details that simply should not have existed at the time. When the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis compiled his world map, he claimed to have drawn from ancient sources, some of which dated back thousands of years. At first glance, the map looks like an impressive but familiar Renaissance-era chart. But once experts examined the southern portion, they froze. The coastline at the bottom of the map appears to depict Antarctica without ice. This is a problem. Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1818, 3 centuries after the map was drawn. And its present-day coastline has been buried under miles of ice for at least 6,000 years. Yet the Piri Reis map shows it clearly outlined, as if the cartographer had access to a source made during a prehistoric period when the continent was ice-free. Official explanations struggle to reconcile this. Some historians argue the southern landmass is simply a distorted representation of South America, but the contours match too closely. Others suggest pure coincidence, an argument that dissolves under scrutiny once you overlay modern satellite imagery onto the ancient parchment. Then there's the detail the map captures: longitudinal relationships with a precision that shouldn't have been achievable before the invention of accurate chronometers in the 18th century. It includes island chains, coastal shelves, and proportions that defy the navigational tools of its era. Even more perplexing are the notes Piri Reis left behind. He openly states that parts of the map were copied from manuscripts recovered from the Library of Alexandria, along with older charts drawn in the era of the unknown kings. This implies access to a cartographic tradition far older and more advanced than classical civilizations. If true, then someone somewhere mapped the world with extraordinary accuracy long before the rise of Greece, Egypt, or Mesopotamia. Long before recorded history. Long before we admit humans were capable of such feats. Mainstream academia quietly brackets these anomalies as curiosities. But the map remains an impossible artifact, a window into a time when advanced seafarers may have circled the globe charting continents we didn't officially know existed. And behind the ink lies the quiet suggestion that our understanding of ancient exploration and the people who carried it out is only a fragment of a far grander story. Number 7 is the Longyou Caves, a sprawling network of enormous hand-carved caverns in China that should have been impossible for any known ancient civilization to construct, yet somehow exist. Discovered in 1992 after a farmer attempted to drain what he believed was a simple pond, these vast subterranean chambers revealed themselves as architectural marvels. Massive pillars, vaulted ceilings, and miles of uniformly carved walls stretch beneath the earth, each surface etched with precise parallel chisel marks that appear almost machine-made. What makes the Longyou Caves so disturbing to historians is not just their size, some measure over 30 meters high, or their smooth geometric perfection. It's the timeline. Local records show no mention of their construction. No legends, no myths, no dynastic accounts. Nothing. A project of this magnitude would have required tens of thousands of workers, engineering knowledge far beyond what is recorded for the region, and decades, if not centuries, of planning. Yet the historical record is silent. Even more inexplicable, the caves have remained structurally stable for over 2 millennia. No signs of collapse, no evidence of flooding, no smoke residue from torches, despite the fact that these pitch-black chambers could not have been excavated without extensive lighting. And then there's the mystery of the stone itself. The excavated material, estimated to be in the millions of cubic meters, has never been found. Where did it go? How was it transported? Why is there no trace? Archaeologists struggle to explain their purpose. Some propose they were storage chambers, but their ornate precision suggests otherwise. Others claim they were ceremonial spaces, but again, the lack of cultural or religious references in any nearby historical texts undermines that idea. Then there are researchers who quietly whisper about a lost civilization, one with engineering capabilities far surpassing nearby cultures. The Longyou Caves sit in an uneasy space between archaeological marvel and historical impossibility. They shouldn't exist, and yet they do. They hint at a society with advanced architectural planning knowledge of structural integrity and possibly even technologies we cannot identify today. But perhaps the strangest part is this. Every cave features the same mysterious parallel markings carved by hand or by something mimicking a machine across every surface. The repetition is almost ritualistic, as if the builders were following a code we no longer understand. The caves remain officially classified as ancient unknown man-made structures. But for those willing to look beyond orthodox history, they may be evidence of a civilization erased not by time, but by design. Number 6 is the Antikythera Mechanism. Often called the world's first computer, yet still too advanced for the civilization that supposedly created it. Recovered from a Roman-era shipwreck off the coast of Antikythera, Greece, this corroded bronze artifact baffled researchers for decades. Only after X-ray imaging revealed more than 30 interlocking gears, some with teeth finer than modern clockwork, did scientists realize what they were looking at. The mechanism could predict solar and lunar eclipses, track planetary motions, calculate the timing of Olympic Games, and even model the irregular orbit of the Moon with a precision unmatched until the 18th century. But the shock goes deeper. To build such a device requires engineering mastery, advanced mathematics, and knowledge of celestial cycles that, according to the official historical timeline, were far beyond the capabilities of ancient Greece. Even today, experts struggle to replicate it using only the tools available in 100 BC. Modern reconstructions require machine tools, lathes, calibrated cutting devices, and measurement techniques that simply did not exist in that era. Yet the original mechanism was constructed flawlessly with no evidence of prototypes' earlier versions or gradual evolution of the technology. It appeared suddenly as if from nowhere, fully realized. And here lies the deepest mystery. Devices of this complexity don't just appear. They emerge from traditions, schools of thought, engineering cultures, generations of refinement. But the historical record is empty. Nothing like it exists before or after. It stands alone without lineage. Researchers have tried to downplay the anomaly by suggesting that the Antikythera mechanism was merely the pinnacle of a lost tradition of ancient engineering. But that explanation quietly concedes the very point it tries to avoid. A highly advanced technological culture must have existed, one capable of understanding the cosmos with astonishing accuracy. If that culture truly existed, why did it vanish? Why is there no record of its teachings? No archaeological trail of its tools, workshops, or scholars? And why did humanity seemingly forget these technologies for nearly 2,000 years? The mechanism feels less like an artifact and more like a message, a surviving fragment of a forgotten epoch of scientific knowledge. An age erased so completely that only a single device hidden in a shipwreck escaped the eraser's edge. To this day, its origin remains an unsolved puzzle. And for many, the Antikythera mechanism is not just evidence of lost knowledge. It's proof that our timeline of scientific progress is far from complete. Number 5 is Göbekli Tepe, a prehistoric temple complex so ancient, so intricate, and so entirely out of place in human history that its very existence rewrote archaeology, or should have. Located in southeastern Turkey, this vast ceremonial site is composed of massive T-shaped megaliths arranged in circular enclosures. Some pillars weigh over 20 tons. Others are carved with high-relief images of animals, abstract symbols, and what appear to be astronomical motifs. But here's the impossible part. Göbekli Tepe is over 11,000 years old. That means it predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years. It predates the pyramids by 7,000. And most importantly, it predates the invention of agriculture, the foundation upon which every conventional timeline of civilization is built. According to the official narrative, humans at that time were simple hunter-gatherers. Small nomadic groups. No cities, no writing, no farming, no complex rituals, and certainly no monumental architecture. Yet the builders of Göbekli Tepe quarried, transported, and erected standing stones so massive that even modern equipment would strain under the task. The site reveals knowledge of geometry engineering and animal symbolism that should not exist in a culture with no permanent settlements. But the deeper archaeologists dig, the stranger it becomes. The earliest layers, those closest to the site's origin, are the most advanced. Over time, the construction becomes simpler, less refined, as if the people who built the earliest structures were more sophisticated than those who came after them. This runs directly counter to the linear model of human progress. Instead, Göbekli Tepe suggests a lost chapter. an earlier civilization possessing complex social structures and architectural abilities long before recorded history begins. And then there's the greatest mystery of all. Around 8000 BC, the entire site was deliberately buried. Not eroded, not abandoned, buried, carefully systematically under tons of soil. Someone wanted to hide it. Someone wanted it preserved, but removed from the world's eyes. Why would an ancient culture go to such lengths to conceal what they had built? Was it an act of reverence, a response to catastrophe, or a deliberate attempt to erase a piece of history? Göbekli Tepe forces us to confront a possibility. Mainstream archaeology avoids that. Human civilization may have risen, fallen, and risen again, leaving behind only enigmatic ruins as proof. And if that's true, then what else lies buried beneath the soil of our forgotten past? Number 4 is the Yonaguni Monument, a colossal underwater structure off the coast of Japan that has ignited one of the fiercest debates in modern archaeology. Discovered by a local diver in 1986, the site sits beneath crystal blue waters at a depth of nearly 30 meters. And from the moment the first photographs emerged, one thing became immediately clear. These geometric formations were far too straight, far too precise, and far too intentional to be the work of mere natural erosion. Massive terraces, right-angled steps, sweeping platforms, and sheer vertical walls define the monument. One section resembles a grand staircase descending into the deep. Another looks like an amphitheater carved into the stone. There are flat planes polished like cut granite, intersecting at perfect 90-degree angles, something nature rarely achieves without a guiding hand. Divers have also documented what appears to be a large triangular plaza pillars that look like toppled megaliths and carved channels that seem to direct water flow. And then there is the infamous face, a ridge of stone shaped uncannily like a human profile. Mainstream scientists insist the site is a natural formation caused by tectonic activity. But this explanation collapses the moment you examine the monument layer by layer. Japan's renowned geologist Dr. Masaaki Kimura spent decades studying Yonaguni and concluded that at least some parts were unquestionably man-made. His team uncovered symmetrical walls, tool-like cut marks, and the foundations of what may have been a huge ancient settlement now swallowed by the sea. The real shock lies in the timeline. If Yonaguni is artificial, then it must have been constructed when the site was still above sea level more than 10,000 years ago, before the end of the last ice age. That makes it older than every known civilization on Earth, older than the earliest cities, older than agriculture. It hints at a maritime culture with architectural skill on par with later megalithic societies, operating thousands of years before history officially begins. And yet, despite mounting evidence, institutions remain hesitant to acknowledge Yonaguni as a human creation. Perhaps because doing so would force a rethink of early human migration, seafaring ability, and technological development. Or perhaps because the idea of an Ice Age civilization capable of such construction is simply too disruptive to the accepted narrative. Whether ancient hands carved it or nature formed it with uncanny perfection, one truth remains. The Yonaguni monument stands as a silent challenge beneath the waves, daring us to question how much of human history has been drowned, buried, or forgotten. Number 3 is the Dropa Stones, a collection of mysterious disc-shaped artifacts discovered in the remote Bayan Kara Ula Mountains on the border of China and Tibet. First reported in the 1930s, these stone discs measure roughly 30 centimeters across, with a perfect circular groove spiraling toward a central hole like ancient vinyl records carved into granite. But it wasn't their shape that unsettled researchers. It was what appeared to be etched along the grooves, tiny, precise hieroglyphic inscriptions so small they required magnification to decipher. According to early reports, a Chinese archaeologist named Dr. Chi Pu-Te led the expedition that uncovered more than 700 of these discs in a cave system containing small skeletal remains with unusually large skulls. The stones were buried beside these ancient remains as if they were markers or records. When the inscriptions were finally studied, they allegedly told a story that defied every established timeline in human history. The text described a people called the Dropa beings, who, according to the discs, descended from the clouds after their spacecraft crashed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. Stranded on Earth, they were hunted by local tribes, struggled to survive, and ultimately integrated into the region's population. Whether this narrative reflects mythology, lost history, or something far more extraordinary has been debated ever since. Mainstream scholars dismiss the Dropa Stones as a hoax, yet no one has been able to reproduce them with the same spiral etching or micro-inscriptions using tools known to exist in ancient China. Even stranger physicists who studied samples of the stones reported unusually high concentrations of cobalt and other metals materials difficult to shape with primitive technology. Some stones allegedly emitted faint electrical signals when tested, as if they once carried some form of encoded data. But perhaps the most damning detail is how aggressively the academic world tried to bury the story. Reports vanished. Museums refused to display the discs. Research papers were discredited without explanation. And the original caves where the remains and discs were found were later sealed off by local authorities. Whether extraterrestrial symbolic or simply the product of a forgotten culture with advanced craftsmanship, the Dropa Stones pose a direct threat to the official historical narrative. They imply contact technology and migration patterns that simply should not exist within the boundaries of accepted archaeology. And yet the stones persist in scattered archives and eyewitness accounts whispering of a past that challenges not only humanity's origin story, but our place in the cosmos. Number 2 is the Saqqara Bird, a small wooden artifact found in an Egyptian tomb dated to around 200 BC. At first glance, it resembles an ordinary carving of a bird. But look closer, much closer, and it becomes something entirely different. Its wings are perfectly shaped like those of a modern glider. Its fuselage is aerodynamic. Its tail, unlike any bird in nature, is vertical, more akin to the rudder of an airplane. When aerodynamicists tested replicas of the Saqqara Bird, they discovered something astonishing: it flies. Not only that, it glides smoothly, achieving lift and stability in a way that suggests intentional design. Egyptologists dismiss the artifact as a simple toy or ceremonial object, but engineers who have analyzed it argue the opposite. Its center of gravity is precisely where it needs to be for flight. Its balance is impeccable, and its form is too mathematically consistent to be accidental. If this carving was scaled up using the same proportions, it would behave exactly like a small, unmanned aircraft. But here comes the twist: the original artifact appears to be incomplete. The tail rudder, essential for aerodynamic stability, has a broken tenon, as if another piece once fit into it. When researchers added a symmetrical horizontal stabilizer to a 3D reconstruction, the glider performed flawlessly. Too flawlessly. In fact, the corrected model resembles early modern airplane prototypes, which leads to the deeper question: how did a civilization that officially had no concept of flight carve an object demonstrating sophisticated aerodynamic principles? Ancient Egypt left behind meticulous documentation, hieroglyphs detailing tools, rituals, mathematics, engineering, astronomy. Yet nothing explicitly describes aviation. And still this artifact exists, stubbornly refusing to fit into the official story. Some speculate the Saqqara Bird was part of a larger model, a teaching tool perhaps, or a demonstration of airflow principles. Others believe it may have been a scaled representation of a much larger craft. But one theory whispered among fringe researchers goes even further: that the ancient Egyptians inherited knowledge from an earlier civilization, one whose understanding of physics surpassed what we've credited to any Bronze Age culture. The twist is this: the Saqqara Bird isn't just anomalous, it may be a survivor. A tiny wooden echo of a forgotten age of experimentation, innovation, and possibly flight. And the fact that it was buried in a tomb sealed away for millennia feels almost intentional, as if someone hoped it would one day be rediscovered, challenging us to rethink everything we know about humanity's technological past. Number 1 is the impossible fossil prints, human-like footprints and tool marks embedded in geological layers millions of years older than Homo sapiens. These discoveries have appeared across the globe in Texas, Mexico, Italy, and even parts of Africa. Each time the same pattern emerges: a fossilized footprint, sometimes barefoot, sometimes sandal-like, pressed into rock strata, dated long before humans were believed to exist. And each time these discoveries are quietly dismissed, reclassified, or removed from public view. The most famous case comes from the Paluxy riverbed in Texas, where giant fossilized dinosaur tracks run parallel to what appear to be human footprints. Some prints are so detailed that you can see individual toe impressions and arch curves. The problem: according to official timelines, humans and dinosaurs are separated by more than 60 million years. The prints simply cannot exist. Yet they do, etched into solid limestone, weathered and exposed for all to see. Then there are the artifacts: a metal hammer embedded in Ordovician rock over 400 million years old. A delicate gold chain reportedly found inside a lump of coal. A metallic cube discovered in 19th century Austria inside a block of lignite dated to tens of millions of years. All of them suggest the same heresy: someone or something was here long before the earliest humans. But the most disturbing of all are the prints found in Laetoli, Tanzania, footprints attributed to early hominins. These tracks are anatomically modern, perfectly shaped, structurally identical to human footprints today. Yet they're dated at 3.6 million years old, long before anatomically modern humans allegedly existed. Scientists debate the issue endlessly, but the footprints themselves remain unchanged. Silent impressions preserved in volcanic ash, contradicting every aspect of the accepted timeline. And here lies the uncomfortable truth: the deeper we dig, the more the Earth seems to whisper of a past unrecognized. A past where intelligent beings, whoever they were, walked, built, crafted, and left behind traces we aren't supposed to find. Perhaps these beings were early humans whose history has been erased. Perhaps they were an earlier civilization entirely lost to cycles of cataclysm. Or perhaps they were something else, something our current narratives cannot accommodate. These fossilized anomalies stand as stubborn, immovable evidence, and the institutions tasked with preserving history often appear more interested in keeping the timeline intact than in uncovering the truth. As we stand at the edge of these impossible discoveries, one question becomes unavoidable. If these prints and the beings who made them are real, then how old is humanity truly? History, as we're taught, is a carefully arranged mosaic. Its pieces selected, shaped, and polished to form a comforting picture of progress. But tonight's journey has shown us the cracks between those pieces. Beneath the soil, beneath the waves, and buried deep within, stone traces of a forgotten world continue to surface. Fragments of a past far older and stranger than the official narrative allows. If these discoveries prove anything, it's that our story is still unfolding. New excavations, new technologies, and new eyes willing to challenge old assumptions may one day reveal the full scope of what came before us. And when that day comes, we may realize that we were never looking at the wrong answers, only asking the wrong questions. There are many more mysteries waiting in the shadows, and the next chapter is already calling. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed today's story, make sure to like and subscribe. It truly helps me create more content for you.